The waiter took Ilani Darrow's plate before she had swallowed her first bite. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, refusing to meet her eyes. "This seat belongs to someone who was actually invited." Around him, 60 former students of Crownmere Academy became fascinated by their glasses. Ilani looked at the gold invitation beside her hand. Her name was printed on it. Her table number was not. 15 years had passed, and Brielle Mercer had somehow turned a high school cruelty into event management. "There must be a mistake," Brielle said from the center table, wearing the sympathetic smile she once used before moving her handbag into Ilani's chair. "Every seat here was carefully assigned." Lena Price covered a laugh with her napkin. Tessa Rowe stared at the floor. Camille Stone opened her mouth, then surrendered to the silence that had protected her since she was 17. Ilani rose slowly. Her emerald gown settled around her full, elegant figure as she lifted the invitation. "Please don't blame the administration," she said. "It has been working very hard on this mistake since 2009. One man choked on his drink. Brielle's smile tightened. Then Darius Cole stepped between them, looking older, richer, and exactly as cowardly as Ilani remembered. "Ilani, don't make the evening uncomfortable." She turned her dark eyes toward the boy who had once promised to save her a seat. "Darius, you managed that without me." The first laugh escaped from somewhere near the bar. Brielle's face changed. Before she could answer, every ballroom door closed at once. The music stopped. 4 hotel security officers moved into position, not facing the guests, but guarding them from whatever was approaching through the corridor. The lights above the entrance dimmed. A tall Korean man entered in a black 3-piece suit, followed by Lim Dae-ho, whose stillness made the armed security around him look nervous. No one announced the man. No one needed to. Baek Min-jae owned the Aurum Grand. According to the frightened stories told by people who never used his full name twice, he also owned judges, shipping routes, private debts, and the final 5 minutes of several powerful men's courage. Min-jae did not look at Brielle. He did not acknowledge the executives rising to greet him. He passed Yoon Mira, the poised woman gossip columns had already married to him 3 different times, although no ring had ever appeared on her hand. His attention remained on Ilani. The room watched him cross the same floor she had been expected to leave. He stopped close enough for her to see that his expression was not romantic. It was controlled, urgent, and faintly furious. "Who removed her chair?" he asked. The waiter went pale. Brielle stood. "Mr. Baek, this is a private reunion." Min-jae finally looked at her. "In my hotel." 3 words. No raised voice. Brielle sat down as if gravity had received new instructions. Dae-ho placed an empty chair beside Min-jae's seat at the most powerful table in the ballroom. Min-jae held Ilani's gaze. "Sit with me." Every person who had watched her eat alone in high school was now watching the most feared man in the building choose her in public. Before Min-jae explains why he crossed a room full of powerful people to choose the one woman they spent years rejecting, let me ask you something. If stories with this much emotion, mystery, and tension are why you are here, subscribe to Afro-Korean Love Tales Hub. Your subscription tells us these premium stories are reaching the people they were created for, and it helps us keep bringing you more. Ilani did not take the chair. That surprised the room more than Min-jae's arrival. "You locked the doors," she said. "Yes." "Your guards are watching the exits." "They are." "And you expect me to believe this is dinner?" Something almost like approval touched his eyes. "No. I expect you to survive dinner." The room went so quiet that the ice settling in Brielle's glass sounded indecently loud. Ilani glanced at the chair, then back at him. "You should know that ordering me to sit has historically produced disappointing results." "Then consider it a request." "Do you make many of those?" "This is my first unsuccessful one." Mira hid a smile behind her glass. Dae-ho studied a chandelier with the concentration of a man determined not to hear his employer being rejected. Ilani should have left. Every instinct that had carried her from a scholarship student nobody defended to a forensic auditor wealthy institutions feared told her to walk through the nearest door and never look back. But the doors were locked, and beneath Min-jae's left hand was a photograph she had not seen in 15 years. The Crownmere Scholarship Banquet. Brielle sat at the center of the old picture, surrounded by Lena, Tessa, Camille, and Darius. At the far edge, the photograph had been cut with such precision that only a strip of Ilani's green uniform sleeve remained. Min-jae turned the photograph over. On its back was a dark circular seal, crossed by a single gold line. Ilani's breath caught. She had found the same seal 3 weeks earlier, inside the financial records of the Crownmere Alumni Foundation, minutes before someone erased 12 years of transactions and sent a warning to her private phone. Min-jae watched recognition move across her face. "Now," he said quietly, "would you like to tell them why everyone in this room is afraid of what you know?" Ilani looked around the ballroom. Brielle was watching the photograph instead of her. Darius had shifted toward the nearest exit. Camille's fingers were clenched so tightly around her napkin that the fabric had twisted into a rope. Only Tessa looked genuinely confused. "They aren't afraid of what I know," Ilani said. "They're afraid of what I can prove." Min-jae pulled the chair back for her. This time, Ilani sat. She moved the chair 2 careful inches away from him. He noticed. "A boundary?" he asked. "A measurement." "Should I be concerned?" "Only if you move." Daeho coughed into his fist. It was the least convincing cough in the history of respiratory illness. Min-jae rested one hand beside the photograph. 3 weeks ago, someone accessed the Alumni Foundation's private archive. 12 years of transfers disappeared 7 minutes later. Brielle lifted her chin. "This is becoming absurd. We came here to celebrate our achievements." Ilani glanced at the centerpieces, the hired orchestra, and the towering arrangement of white roses positioned beneath Brielle's enormous reunion portrait. "Brielle, we noticed." Lena stopped smiling. Min-jae continued as if no one had interrupted. "The person who entered that archive left no name." "Then perhaps you should find a better investigator." "I did." His gaze settled on Ilani. "She is sitting beside me." The reaction moved across the ballroom like wind through dry leaves. Former classmates turned toward Ilani with the startled resentment of people discovering that someone they had dismissed had become important without requesting permission. Darius stepped closer. "You're the anonymous auditor?" Ilani remembered him watching while Brielle tore her scholarship application in half. He had apologized 3 days later, privately, where courage could not damage his reputation. "Anonymous means I wasn't collecting reunion opinions." Min-jae's mouth shifted at one corner. Darius saw it and looked personally betrayed. "She doesn't know what kind of man you are," he told Min-jae. "Neither did you," Ilani replied, "and you still copied his haircut." Mira lowered her glass before her smile became visible. Even one of the guards looked briefly interested in the carpet. Darius touched his hair, which confirmed the accusation more efficiently than words could have. Min-jae leaned slightly toward Ilani, stopping before he crossed the 2-inch line. "You entered the archive because the missing money belonged to you." "It belonged to 30 scholarship students." "Your name was first." The humor disappeared. Ilani looked at the old photograph again. For years, she had believed Brielle excluded her because cruelty was the cheapest way for an insecure girl to feel expensive. But the stolen records suggested something colder. Every student photographed at the banquet had received a numbered table assignment. Those numbers matched the final digits of the foundation accounts Ilani had uncovered. Table 1 led to one transfer cluster. Table 2 led to another. Ilani's invitation had no table number because her account was the one account that could not be allowed to exist. She reached for the photograph. Min-jae covered it with his hand. "Not yet." Her eyes lifted. That sounded dangerously like an order. "The photograph was delivered to my private residence this morning. A man who handled it is now missing." Ilani did not withdraw her hand. "And you brought it into a ballroom filled with suspects." "I brought it to the only person who understood it." Their fingers remained inches apart on opposite edges of the photograph. The room around them seemed to recede, leaving only the evidence between them and the dangerous fact that Min-jae had trusted her before she had agreed to trust him. Then a champagne glass shattered behind Ilani. She turned. Tessa stood frozen beside the center table. The stem of her glass remained between her fingers, while champagne spread across the white cloth. Her face had lost all color. On the dark presentation screens behind the orchestra, the old scholarship photograph had appeared. No one had touched the controls. Daeho moved immediately. 2 guards covered Min-jae while another checked the service corridor. Min-jae ignored their formation and shifted his chair between Ilani and the open center of the room. "Did you authorize that screen?" Ilani asked. "No." The ballroom doors clicked. Guests rushed toward them, but every handle remained locked. Daeho pressed his earpiece. For the first time since entering the room, his expression changed. "We lost control of the doors." Ilani looked at Min-jae. "I thought you locked us in." "I closed the ballroom," he said. "Someone else made sure we couldn't leave." The image on the screens widened, revealing a detail that had been cut from Min-jae's physical copy. At the far end of the old banquet table sat Ilani's mother. Beside her was Kwon Ji-suk, the one man Min-jae had been taught never to challenge in public. And Kwon's hand was resting on the original scholarship ledger. Ilani rose so quickly that her chair struck the floor behind her. "You knew my mother." Min-jae was no longer watching the screen. He was watching Kwon's hand on the ledger as if it had reached through 15 years to close around his throat. "I knew what he accused her of doing." "That wasn't my question." "No," he said. "It was the question he wanted you to ask." A distorted voice emerged from the ballroom speakers. "One woman was removed from the picture. One daughter was removed from the table. Before midnight, decide which one of them was the thief." The screens went black. Every guest began speaking at once. Ilani barely heard them. Her mother had died when Ilani was 19. At least, that was what the sealed hospital notice, the empty funeral, and 15 years of grief had taught her to believe. Min-jae picked up the fallen chair and examined its underside. A small black key had been fastened beneath the seat. Daeho stared at it. That chair didn't come from the hotel. Min-jae removed the key without touching its surface directly, then looked at Ilani. "Someone didn't forget your seat," he said. "They brought it here for you." If you are still watching, drop one emoji that describes how you feel about Min-jae's decision. Then tell us your location and the time you are watching, because I need to know how far this reunion disaster has travelled. Ilani held out her hand. "Give me the key." Min-jae's fingers closed around it. "We don't know what it opens." "That is generally why people use keys." "It was planted beneath a chair intended for you." "Which makes it mine." "That is not how evidence works." "And locking 60 people inside a ballroom is not how hospitality works, yet your hotel remains unusually confident." Mira turned away before her laugh could become a diplomatic incident. Min-jae studied Ilani for one long second, then placed the key in her palm. His fingertips touched her skin only briefly, but the contact carried enough heat to make her close her hand too quickly. His eyes dropped to her fist. She stepped beyond the 2-inch boundary before he could comment. Daeho reported that the ballroom controls were being overridden from somewhere inside the building. The exterior corridors remained secure. Whoever had trapped them was either hidden among the guests or had entered the Aurum Grand before Min-jae's security arrived. Min-jae ordered Mira to keep everyone inside the ballroom's central area and separate hotel staff from former students. Brielle objected immediately. "You cannot detain us." Mira smiled with flawless courtesy. "You are welcome to leave through any door that opens." It was the politest description of captivity Ilani had ever heard. Ilani examined the black key. It was old, heavier than a hotel key, with a narrow notch cut into one side. Camille stared at it as if she had seen it before. Ilani noticed. "Tell me." Camille shook her head. Min-jae did not threaten her. He simply turned his attention toward her, and Camille's courage collapsed under the full weight of being noticed. "There was a private dining room beneath the old assembly hall," she whispered. "Table 7. Students weren't allowed inside." Ilani remembered the locked door beside Crownmere's kitchen. Brielle's father had entered it after every scholarship banquet with the headmaster and 3 donors. Her mother had once emerged from that corridor crying, then refused to explain why. "Why didn't you say this when we were 17? Ilani asked. Camille's shame arrived before her answer. "Because Brielle said your mother was stealing from the school." Ilani felt the accusation like a slap delivered 15 years late. Min-jae moved closer, not touching her, but placing himself between her and the watching room. She hated that the gesture comforted her. She hated more that he seemed to know it would. Daeho located the key's matching lock inside an original service lift behind the ballroom kitchen. Ilani insisted Camille come with them. Min-jae agreed on the condition that Daeho led the way. As they crossed the ballroom, Darius caught Ilani's wrist. Min-jae stopped. He looked first at Darius's hand, then at Darius. The silence was so precise that Darius released her before anyone ordered him to. "Don't go down there with him," Darius said. "You don't know what the Beck family did to that foundation." Ilani rubbed the place his fingers had held. "You had 15 years to become brave. This is a fascinating time to begin." "I'm trying to protect you." Min-jae's expression remained calm. "You should practice on someone who still believes you." Darius's jealousy sharpened. "And she believes you?" "No," Ilani said. "That is why he is being more useful." She walked away before either man could mistake her for a prize they were entitled to contest. The service lift waited behind a blank steel door. The black key turned inside a lock hidden beneath the handrail. No floor number illuminated. The doors closed, and the lift began descending without Daeho touching a control. Camille gripped the rail. How far down does this hotel go? Ilani asked. 4 basement levels, Min-jae replied. The lift passed all 4. Then it stopped hard. The lights went out. Ilani lost her balance as the floor shifted beneath her. Min-jae caught her around the waist and pulled her firmly against him before her shoulder struck the wall. Emergency lights filled the lift with a low amber glow. His arm remained around her. One of her hands was pressed against his chest. His heartbeat was controlled, but not as controlled as his face. That was considerably more than 2 inches, she said. You were falling. An explanation is not a permit. Should I release you before the lift settles? The floor trembled again. Ilani tightened her hand in his jacket. Your temporary permit has been renewed. Daeho faced the doors with heroic commitment. Camille stared at the ceiling, although there was nothing above her except a dead light and several years of social guilt. When the lift stabilized, Min-jae released Ilani slowly. His hand left her waist last. Neither of them mentioned it. The doors opened onto a narrow underground dining room, preserved from the hotel's original construction. A single long table occupied the center. 7 chairs stood on each side, all covered in dust except one. The clean chair waited at the head. Ilani approached it with the key still in her hand. Beneath the table was a metal lockbox, bearing the same circular seal from the photograph. The key opened it. Inside were 30 cream envelopes, each tied with a faded gold cord. 29 carried the embossed mark used by Crownmere's scholarship committee. 1 was plain and empty. Camille began crying. That one was yours, she said.
Ilani did not touch it.
How do you know? Camille pulled a folded card from the lining of her clutch. The card was worn at the edges, as though she had carried it for years without earning the courage to unfold it. Because I took this out before Brielle's father sealed the box. It was a copy of Ilani's original scholarship decision. Her score was the highest in Crownmere's history. The award had covered university tuition, housing, and a professional placement after graduation. Below the decision was a withdrawal authorization. The signature was not Ilani's, but she recognized the handwriting. Darius had written her name. Camille's confession came apart in broken sentences. Darius had seen Brielle's father remove Ilani's file. He had been offered the professional placement attached to her scholarship if he signed the withdrawal form and convinced the committee that Ilani had chosen to leave Crownmere. He accepted. Then he sat beside her in class for 6 months, listened to her wonder why the scholarship committee had stopped answering, and pretended he knew nothing. Ilani remembered every private apology differently. They had not been apologies. They had been maintenance. Min-jae read the copy decision over her shoulder. His anger was silent, which made it feel less temporary. Where is the original? He asked. Camille looked toward the far wall. Darius kept it. A slow clap sounded from the doorway. Darius stood there with an old envelope in one hand and a hotel access card in the other. Daeho moved between him and the table. You were always dramatic, Camille, Darius said. Even your guilt needs an audience. Ilani faced him. Did you sign my name? For 1 second, he looked like the boy she had trusted. Then his expression hardened into the man that trust had purchased. I was 18. So was I. My family had nothing. Neither did mine. You solved that by taking what was ours. Darius's eyes shifted towards Min-jae. Ask him where the scholarship money came from before you make me the villain. He threw the old envelope across the table. Min-jae caught it before it reached Ilani. Inside was the foundation's original funding agreement. The circular seal belonged to a Beck family company. Min-jae's father had supplied the money Kwon and Brielle's father later redirected. Ilani turned towards Min-jae. You knew? I knew my father funded a scholarship program. I did not know Kwon used it to move money through students who never received it. Darius laughed without humor. He knew enough to investigate you for 6 months. That landed differently. Ilani looked at Min-jae. 6 months? Min-jae did not deny it. Darius placed a small recording device on the table. You think he chose you tonight? He asked. Listen to how long ago he decided you belonged in his plan. Min-jae reached for the device. Ilani took it first. If it concerns me, I press play. Darius smiled. There she is. The recording began with Daeho's voice asking whether surveillance on the Crownmere auditor should continue. Min-jae answered from somewhere quiet, each word unmistakable. Do not approach her. If Kwon learns she opened the archive, he will move before we understand what she found. Daeho asked, And if protecting the organization requires us to surrender the auditor? There was a pause. Then Min Jae said, Ilani is the only key that matters. The recording ended. The underground room felt colder. Darius watched Ilani with ugly satisfaction. He didn't cross that ballroom because he saw you. He crossed it because he needed a key. Min Jae's gaze remained on her. The recording is incomplete. Is your voice incomplete? No. Did you investigate me for 6 months? Yes. The honesty hurt more than a denial would have. You watched me. I watched the people watching you. That distinction probably sounds impressive inside criminal boardrooms. It kept you alive. Ilani remembered the black sedan parked outside her office twice in 1 week. The silent man who followed her through a crowded market. The elevator that mysteriously remained open when another passenger made her uneasy. She had believed she was becoming paranoid. Min Jae had known she was in danger and allowed her to doubt herself instead. You could have warned me. I tried. Sending silent men in black coats is not a warning. It is how sensible women change routes and purchase louder alarms. Daeho looked faintly offended on behalf of the silent men. Min Jae stepped toward her. Every message we sent was intercepted. Every person who approached you was identified within hours. Distance was the only protection I could give you without confirming your importance. Ilani backed away before he reached the boundary that no longer felt measurable. Protection without consent is control wearing better tailoring. His face tightened because he knew she was right. Behind Darius, the underground door slammed shut. The speakers activated again. Kwon's distorted voice filled the hidden room. The thief is standing beside you, Ilani. Give Darius the key, and I will open the ballroom. Darius extended his hand. Ilani looked at the man who had stolen her future, then at the man who had secretly guarded it. She closed her fingers around the black key. I have spent enough of my life handing men the things they decided belonged to them. The lights failed again. In the darkness, someone seized her hand, and the key disappeared from her palm. Emergency light returned seconds later. Min Jae stood directly in front of Ilani, one arm shielding her. Daeho remained beside the sealed door. Camille was pressed against the wall. Darius was gone. So was the original scholarship envelope. On the table, his recording device continued playing a sentence that had been cut from the first playback. Min Jae's voice said, "Even if protecting her destroys everything my family built." Ilani stared at the device. The missing sentence did not erase the surveillance. It did not return the months she had spent questioning her instincts, but it changed the shape of Min Jae's lie. He had called her a key because Darius wanted her to hear the word. He had been willing to lose everything because Darius did not want her to hear the rest. Daeho found a narrow maintenance panel hanging open behind the underground curtains. Darius had used the darkness to slip into a service passage with the key and original envelope. Where does it lead? Ilani asked. Back to the ballroom stage, Min Jae said. Camille wiped her face. The reunion portrait. They turned toward her. Brielle insisted it be mounted over the original hotel crest, she explained. She said the wall behind it had to remain untouched. The old hotel crest contained the second lock. Darius had not come underground to escape. He had come to retrieve the key for Brielle. Min Jae instructed Daeho to take Camille through the emergency passage. Then he held out his hand to Ilani. The service lift may stop again. She looked at his open palm. Is this protection or control? A request. Your second one tonight? The first remains unresolved. Ilani placed her hand in his. Temporary permit. His fingers closed around hers with careful strength. The emergency passage forced them close, shoulder to shoulder, through a corridor too narrow for the distance Ilani had demanded upstairs. Min Jae never released her hand. He did not pull or direct her. He matched her pace. Why 6 months? She asked. Not here. That answer has expired. He glanced toward Daeho and Camille several steps ahead. I saw you at another Beck hotel. A supervisor accused a kitchen worker of stealing a guest's bracelet. Ilani remembered. The worker had been crying beside an overturned supply cart, while wealthy guests watched as if fear were entertainment. The bracelet was inside the guest's purse. You were the only person who asked them to search it. That required eyesight, not heroism. It required standing alone while an entire lobby preferred the easier lie. Min Jae's thumb moved once against the back of her hand. 3 days later, your audit reached the Crownmere Foundation. I recognized your name. Ilani's breath shortened. So you investigated me. I investigated the danger moving toward you. I kept learning about you because stopping became difficult. The confession was quiet enough to feel accidental. She looked at him. That sounded almost human. Daeho tells me the condition is manageable. Ahead of them, Daeho continued walking without accepting responsibility for the diagnosis. The passage ended behind the ballroom stage. Music had resumed through the speakers, but the melody repeated the same 6 notes, turning celebration into warning. Mira stood near the dark screens with Brielle, Lena, and Tessa separated at different tables. She had removed her diamond earrings and placed them beside her clutch, as if preparing for work rather than romance. Darius reached the stage 3 minutes ago, she told Min-jae. He is behind the reunion portrait. Ilani noticed a thin communication wire now visible beneath Mira's hair. You're not a socialite. Mira's expression remained pleasant. I have attended enough charity dinners to consider that an insult. And you are not his fiancée. Also an insult, although for different reasons. Min-jae looked unimpressed. Mira. The rumors were operational cover, Mira said. Kwon studies attachments. A false engagement gave him a convincing answer, while Min-jae protected the person he was actually afraid to lose. Her eyes moved toward Ilani. Min-jae's hand tightened around Ilani's before he released it. You could have allowed me to explain that, he told Mira. You have had 6 months. At your current pace, she would learn during retirement. Ilani tried not to smile. Min-jae saw her fail. A heavy panel shifted behind the enormous reunion portrait. Darius emerged holding the black key and a narrow leather ledger. Brielle rushed toward him before remembering that everyone was watching. That hesitation exposed her. Ilani stepped onto the stage. You knew what was behind the portrait. Brielle recovered quickly. I organized the event. Of course I know the venue. You selected this hotel because Table 7's underground room connects to that wall. That is ridiculous. Tessa stood from her isolated table. It's true. Brielle turned so sharply that one white rose fell from her hair. Tessa's voice shook, but it did not stop. Brielle had ordered her to recreate the original seating chart using the old scholarship table numbers. Every graduate connected to a missing account had been placed in the same relative position they occupied 15 years earlier. Ilani had been left without a number because Brielle needed her standing, visible and angry enough to leave. The humiliation was a distraction, Tessa said. Darius was supposed to take the key after she walked out. Ilani looked at the chair beside Min-jae's table. He had not merely given her a place to sit. By stopping her from leaving, he had broken Brielle's plan. Brielle laughed too brightly. Tessa has always confused panic with memory. And you have always confused confidence with evidence, Ilani said. Tonight, only one of those is useful. Darius held up the ledger. Enough. Kwon promised the doors would open when I delivered this. The distorted voice returned through the speakers. Then deliver it. Show yourself. You were paid to obey, not negotiate. Darius looked toward the locked doors, finally understanding that men like Kwon did not promote accomplices. They erased them. He stepped toward Min-jae instead. Get me out, and the ledger is yours. Min-jae did not move. It was never yours to sell. Neither was the scholarship, but that did not stop anyone. Ilani walked between them. Min-jae's guards shifted, but he raised one hand and stopped them. He was giving her control of the moment, even though every instinct in him demanded the opposite. Darius, Ilani said, you spent 15 years believing what you stole made you successful. Look at you now. You have the original proof in your hand, and every person who paid you is waiting for someone else to silence you. His grip weakened. Give me the ledger, she continued. And for once in your life, let the truth cost you something. Brielle lunged toward him. Her heel caught the fallen rose. She stumbled into the towering reunion portrait, which tilted forward with majestic slowness before collapsing across the stage curtains. No one was hurt. The portrait landed face down. Mira regarded it. An unexpectedly accurate review of the evening. Even Tessa laughed. In the confusion, Darius handed Ilani the ledger. Brielle's expression turned vicious. You ungrateful coward. Darius looked at her. That accusation would mean more if you had not rehearsed it in a mirror. The comeback arrived 15 years late, but Ilani allowed him to keep it. The speakers cut off. The ballroom doors unlocked one by one. Guests surged toward the exits. Daeho's team directed them into secured corridors, while Mira collected the recording device and funding agreement. Brielle tried to disappear into the crowd, but Tessa stepped into her path. For once, the empty space beside Brielle belonged to someone else. Ilani remained on the stage, with the ledger against her chest. Minjae approached slowly. "May I cross the measurement?" She looked down at the distance between them. "For what purpose?" "To determine whether you are injured." "I am not." "Then to admit that I should have told you the truth 6 months ago." "You should have." "And that choosing you tonight began as protection." The word struck the bruise Darius had created. Minjae continued before she could retreat. "But protecting you was not why I crossed the ballroom." Ilani lifted her eyes. "I crossed because they expected you to leave alone again," he said. "I have watched rooms make space for cruel people all my life. You were the first person I saw make cruelty lose its seat." The ballroom seemed to fall away. "That line was dangerously prepared," she whispered. "For 6 months." She laughed despite herself, and something guarded in his face finally softened. Ilani lowered the ledger. 1 step. Minjae crossed the distance. He did not touch her until she turned her hand palm up between them. Then his fingers met hers, not possessive, not secret, and not mistaken for permission to claim anything more. "Your temporary permit remains under review," she said. "I will prepare an appeal. Do not send silent men to deliver it." Behind them, Daeho developed another sudden interest in the chandelier. Mira opened the ledger on the fallen portrait. Most entries ended 15 years earlier. A second group continued through shell foundations and false beneficiaries, but the final transfer was recent. Very recent. Ilani joined her. The final payment had been processed that morning. Its beneficiary was identified only by the same hospital reference used on Ilani's mother's death notice. Mira compared the 2 records and went still. "This is not a memorial payment," she said. Ilani's fingers closed around the edge of the table. "Then what is it?" Mira looked toward Minjae before answering. "Ongoing medical care." Ilani stared at the date. Someone had paid to keep her mother alive that morning. Ilani looked at Minjae. "Did you know?" "No." She searched his face for the controlled pause that preceded strategy. There was none. For the first time that night, Minjae looked genuinely unprepared. Daeho traced the payment reference through the hotel's secured network. It led to a private medical facility registered through one of Kwon's holding companies. The listed address had been abandoned for 8 years. "The transaction is a signal," Mira said. "He wanted us to find it tonight." Minjae reached for the ledger, but Ilani kept hold of it. "If this is a trap, you are not walking into it." There it is again. "What?" "Control in excellent tailoring." His jaw tightened. "Your mother may be alive. Kwon wants the discovery to override your judgment." "It has." Ilani's voice broke, but she did not lower it. "That does not make the judgment yours." Minjae stepped closer, then stopped himself. "What do you choose?" he asked. The question cost him something. She could see it. "I choose to find her." "Then we find her." "Not I. Not my men. We." Before Ilani could answer, every dark presentation screen activated at once. A live camera showed a woman's hand resting against a white hospital blanket. The face remained outside the frame. Around the woman's wrist was a bracelet made from amber, black stone, and 1 green glass bead. Ilani had made that bracelet for her mother when she was 12. The woman's fingers moved weakly against the blanket. Then they formed the private signal Ilani's mother used whenever words were unsafe. 3 taps. A pause. 2 taps. Run. The doors behind Minjae locked again. This time, Ilani understood the warning was not about Kwon. Her mother was telling her to run from the man standing beside her. Minjae had seen the signal too. He released Ilani's hand before she could pull away. The screens returned to black, but a secure phone began ringing beneath the fallen reunion portrait. Mira lifted it and checked the incoming symbol. All humor left her face. "It is using your father's private channel," she told Minjae. "The channel that was buried with him." The phone continued ringing. No one reached for it. Minjae looked at Ilani. "If you answer, Kwon controls the next moment." "He already controls it." "Not if silence frightens him more than obedience satisfies him." Ilani let the phone ring twice more. Then she answered. There was no voice. Only the sound of a woman breathing, followed by 3 taps and 2. "Run." The call disconnected. Ilani held the phone against her chest. 15 years of grief had taught her how to live without hope. Hope had returned in less than a minute and immediately become the most dangerous thing in the room. "Open every door," she told Min-jae. "Daeho is trying." "No, open every secret your family buried in this hotel." Min-jae's gaze moved to the black key still in Darius's hand. Darius followed his eyes and closed his fist. "This is my protection," he said. Ilani faced him. "Your protection was Camille's silence, then Brielle's father, then Kwon. You keep choosing shields that need you weaker than they are." "And you chose him?" Darius pointed at Min-jae. "What does he need you to be?" The question hurt because Ilani did not yet know. Min-jae answered for himself. "Free to leave." He ordered Daeho to unlock the service corridor and escort Ilani outside if that was what she wanted. Daeho hesitated. The threat remains active. So does her choice. Ilani heard the lesson Min-jae had learned from her, and that, not his guards, his hotel, or his willingness to destroy an empire, made staying feel possible. "I'm not leaving without my mother," she said. She held her hand toward Darius. The key. He looked at the locked doors and finally understood that possession had never made him powerful. He placed it in her palm. The key fit a concealed lock beneath the original hotel crest, exposed when Brielle's portrait fell. A narrow wall opened behind the stage, revealing a private archive untouched by renovation. Min-jae stopped at its entrance. He recognized the room. "My father brought me here once," he said. "The night he died." Inside stood a round black table with 7 chairs. One chair faced the wall, separated from the others. Sealed storage drawers surrounded it. At the center rested a blank-backed photograph frame and an old voice recorder. Ilani walked to the isolated chair. Its upholstery matched the chair planted for her in the ballroom. Mira examined the drawers while Daeho secured the entrance. Camille, Tessa, Brielle, and Darius remained outside under guard, separated so no single image of their guilt could become another comforting group photograph. The black key opened the first drawer. Inside was Ilani's mother's hospital notice. The death certification carried a seal from the Beck family office. Ilani's hand began to shake. Min-jae saw the seal and went still. "I never saw that document." "But your father authorized it. Or someone used his office after his death." Mira checked the date. It was authorized 3 days before he died. The room shifted beneath Ilani more violently than the service lift had. Min-jae's father had declared her mother dead while she was still alive. The old recorder activated by itself. Kwon's younger voice filled the archive, preserved from 15 years earlier. He accused Ilani's mother of copying the scholarship ledger. Another man, Min-jae's father, ordered Kwon to return the stolen money and release every student record. Then Ilani's mother spoke. "If you expose Kwon tonight, he will destroy both our children." Both. Ilani looked at Min-jae. The recording continued. Min-jae's father proposed hiding Ilani's mother until the evidence could be secured. Her death would be staged. The funding trail would be divided across the 7 table accounts, and the final proof would remain with the only student who had no assigned number. Ilani. Her missing seat had not originally been designed to erase her. Her mother had removed her number, so no corrupted account could carry her identity. She had made Ilani the one witness Kwon could not locate through the ledger. But Brielle's father discovered the plan. He turned protection into punishment, teaching Brielle to keep Ilani isolated while he searched for whatever her mother had left with her. 15 years of cruelty had grown around a secret Ilani never knew she was carrying. Min-jae looked toward the isolated chair. "That is why Kwon called you the key." Ilani touched the backrest. "And why your father helped the world believe my mother was dead." The recorder clicked off before revealing where she had been taken. Brielle laughed from the doorway. Daeho turned, but Ilani raised her hand. She wanted to hear it. "You still think you were special," Brielle said. "Your mother made everyone's life dangerous, and you walked around Crownmere expecting us to feel sorry for you." Ilani approached her. "No. I expected you to move your handbag." Tessa covered her mouth. Camille looked down, but this time she did not hide her relief. Brielle's confidence cracked. My father said if you ever sat at table 7, Kwon would take everything from us. So you helped him take everything from me first. We were children. You recreated the same seating chart tonight. Brielle had no childhood left to hide behind. Mira discovered a second compartment beneath the isolated chair. It contained a small drive and 7 metal tokens, each bearing one section of the circular seal. When arranged together, 6 formed a complete ring. The 7th space was empty. Ilani remembered the green glass bead on her mother's bracelet. The bead was not glass. It was the missing piece. The screens inside the archive illuminated with a live view of the hospital blanket. Ilani's mother's hand remained visible, but the bracelet was gone. Kwon had removed the final token. His voice entered the room without distortion. "Bring me the ledger, the key, and Min-jae. You may have your mother." Min-jae stepped toward the screen. "You do not need Ilani. I have needed her for 15 years. Your father merely taught me patience." "Where are you?" Kwon laughed. "Ask the woman beside you. Her mother left the location in the one place no one allowed her to sit." The feed ended. Everyone looked at the isolated chair. Ilani examined its seams, legs, and underside. Nothing moved. Darius suggested breaking it apart. Brielle insisted it was empty. Tessa remembered the original Crown-Mere seating ritual. Students were required to say the school promise before taking their places. Ilani had never been allowed to say it at a table. She refused to repeat the institution's hollow words now. Instead, she spoke the sentence her mother taught her whenever powerful people demanded silence. An empty place still belongs to someone. A concealed compartment released beneath the seat. Inside was a secure phone and a map with one location marked by a blank gold circle. Daeho recognized the geometry as an abandoned Beck medical residence beyond the city. Min-jae's face changed. Ilani saw recognition before he could hide it. "You have been there." "Once. I was 20. The year my mother died." He nodded. Min-jae remembered his father driving him to the residence during a storm. He had been ordered to wait in the car. Through the rain, he saw 2 attendants help a woman through a side entrance, while his father argued with Kwon beneath the portico. The woman's face had been covered. Min-jae heard his father say, "If my son learns who she is, Kwon will use him to reach her daughter." 3 days later, Min-jae's father died in what the family called an accident. Kwon assumed temporary control of the organization, and the medical residence was closed before Min-jae could return. "You remembered a hidden woman for 15 years and never investigated?" Ilani asked. "I investigated. Every record was empty. Every employee had vanished. Kwon convinced me my father had been hiding an informant who betrayed us. My mother. I know that now." His regret was real. So was the damage created by what he had failed to know. Ilani refused to comfort him simply because his pain had become visible. Mira connected the small drive to an isolated reader. It contained copies of the scholarship transfers, Kwon's authorizations, Brielle's father's instructions, and Darius's forged withdrawal. It was enough to expose the foundation without sacrificing the original ledger. Darius lowered himself into a chair. "If that is released, everything I built disappears." Ilani looked at him. "Everything you built with my future." He nodded, finally unable to argue. He agreed to give a complete statement. Tessa and Camille did the same. Brielle crossed her arms. "I want legal representation." Mira handed her a plain card. "Excellent. Personal growth and procedural awareness in the same evening." Brielle stared at the card as if courtesy had physically struck her. Min-jae authorized Mira to release the evidence to independent investigators if he failed to return from the medical residence. He also gave Daeho temporary command over every Beck security team not controlled by Kwon. "You are preparing to lose your organization," Ilani said. "No." Min-jae removed the dark signet ring from his hand and placed it beside the ledger. "I am deciding what deserves to survive." Daeho looked at the ring, then at Min-jae. "Your father would call this reckless." "My father left a woman hidden for 15 years. His standards require revision." Ilani watched the most powerful man in the room surrender the symbol everyone else had spent the night trying to possess. It did not prove he was innocent. It proved his choice carried a price. Ilani picked up the signet ring and held it toward him. Minjai did not take it. I meant what I did. Then do not confuse surrender with accountability. You may need authority to bring my mother home. And afterward? Afterward, you answer every question. How many? I am an auditor. Asking that was optimistic. For the first time since the hospital feed appeared, his expression softened. He allowed Ilani to place the ring back in his palm, but he did not return it to his finger. He closed his hand around it, as though accepting a debt, rather than reclaiming power. Temporary permit? He asked. Temporary responsibility, she corrected. Minjai immediately ordered vehicles prepared. Ilani caught his sleeve. Kwon asked for you. Then he will be disappointed by how many of us arrive. Your father hid my mother there, and I will bring her out. You cannot promise that. No. His voice softened. But I can promise you will never enter another room alone because someone powerful decided you had no place in it. The words reached her, but they could not erase the Beck seal on her mother's false death notice. Ilani opened the secure phone. It rang before she touched anything. This time, her mother's face appeared. Older, exhausted, alive. Ilani forgot the ballroom, the ledger, and every person watching. Mama? Her mother pressed one hand toward the camera. Ilani, listen to me. Ask Minjai what his family did to me before you let him choose you. The screen went black. Ilani turned. Minjai was already staring at the false death notice. The guilt on his face told her that he finally understood something he had not known when he crossed the ballroom. And whatever it was, could destroy the choice they had only just begun to make. Part 2, if you need the truth about why Minjai chose Ilani.